What is SDLC? SDLC is not a theory. Every production failure you've seen, outages, rewrites, delays, can be traced back to a broken SDLC decision. The software development lifecycle, SDLC, is a structured, end-to-end process used in the software industry to plan, design, build, test, deploy, and maintain software. Think of it as a framework that defines what work happens at each stage, who is responsible, what artifacts are produced, and how decisions are validated before moving forward. What SDLC really means in practice in real engineering teams, SDLC is more than a checklist. It functions as a governance and decision-making lifecycle that defines how requirements are captured and clarified, how key decisions are documented, how risks, technical, security, compliance, cost, are controlled, and how software evolves safely over time. It is not necessarily linear. Many teams run these phases iteratively, but the core idea stays the same: reduce uncertainty early and reduce risk continuously. The goal of SDLC, the main purpose of SDLC, is to deliver software that meets or exceeds customer expectations, ships within time and budget constraints, performs reliably in real-world usage, and remains maintainable, scalable, and secure over the long term. Why SDLC matters: building software without SDLC is like building a house without a blueprint. You might still finish something, but you'll likely face expensive problems later: misaligned rooms, weak structures, constant repairs. SDLC provides the blueprint, checkpoints, and structured workflow that help teams avoid chaos and deliver software that is engineered to last. The core phases of SDLC. Although SDLC is often shown as 7 phases, in real projects these phases are iterative and interconnected, not isolated silos. Phase 1. Planning, requirement gathering, analysis and requirement engineering. Phase 1 is the most critical phase of the SDLC. It sets the direction for the entire project and determines whether the software initiative is viable, valuable, and achievable. Mistakes made here propagate through every later phase and become increasingly expensive to fix. In traditional terminology, this phase is often called requirement gathering. In real-world software engineering, it is more accurately described as requirement engineering. Purpose of Phase 1. The primary objective of this phase is to define what should be built and why, before deciding how it will be built. It ensures that business goals, user needs, and technical realities are aligned from the beginning. This phase transforms a vague idea into a well-defined, feasible problem statement. Reality of requirements. In real systems, requirements are rarely clean or complete. They are often incomplete, contradictory, and constantly changing. Because of this, requirement engineering is not a one-time activity but an iterative and analytical process. Roles involved. This phase is typically led by senior and cross-functional stakeholders, including project managers, business analysts, product owners, with continuous input from customers and end users, sales and marketing teams, market research and competitive analysis. Key activities. During this phase, teams perform the following critical activities: identify stakeholders and end users, define functional requirements, what the system must do, define non-functional requirements, performance, security, scalability, availability, determine system constraints and regulatory requirements, define clear acceptance criteria for success, identify project risks and establish scope boundaries, feasibility and risk considerations. A core responsibility of this phase is evaluating whether the project is realistically achievable. This includes technical feasibility. Can the system scale? Is the technology stack viable and secure? Economic feasibility. Is the project cost-effective? Should the solution be built in-house or purchased? Operational feasibility. Can the organization deploy, support, and maintain the system? Compliance feasibility. Does the system meet regulatory and legal requirements such as GDPR, PCI, or HIPAA? Artifacts produced by the end of Phase 1. The following artifacts are typically produced: Software Requirement Specification, SRS, user stories and backlog items, domain models and high-level process flows, initial project plan, roadmap, and risk assessment. These artifacts form the foundation for architecture, design, testing, and validation in later phases. Why this phase is critical. Failure or shortcuts in this phase almost always result in scope creep, repeated rework, unstable architecture, increased cost and delivery delays. A strong phase 1 ensures that the team is solving the right problem, with clear constraints and measurable success criteria, making all subsequent SDLC phases significantly more effective. Phase 2. Defining requirements and specification. Once requirements are gathered and analyzed, they must be clearly defined, validated, and documented. This phase converts understanding into formal, unambiguous specifications that guide all technical work. Purpose of Phase 2. The objective of this phase is to eliminate ambiguity. It ensures that all stakeholders share a common understanding of what the system will do, what it will not do, and the conditions under which it will be considered complete. Key activities: consolidating and refining requirements, resolving conflicts and contradictions, finalizing functional and non-functional requirements, defining system interfaces and constraints, validating requirements with stakeholders. Key artifact: software requirement specification, SRS. The SRS acts as a baseline for design and development, a reference for testing and validation, and a contractual agreement between business and engineering. Why this phase matters: poorly defined requirements lead to inconsistent implementations, failed acceptance testing, disputes between stakeholders. This phase ensures requirements are stable enough to design against, even if they continue to evolve later. Phase 3. System and architecture design. In this phase, requirements are transformed into a technical solution blueprint. The focus shifts from what the system should do to how it will do it. Purpose of Phase 3: to define a system architecture that is scalable, maintainable, secure, and aligned with business and technical constraints. Key activities: selecting architectural style, monolith, microservices, event-driven, etc., designing system components and their interactions, defining database schemas and data flows, designing APIs and integration contracts, planning for scalability, fault tolerance, and performance. Design levels: high-level design, HLD, overall system structure and major components; low-level design, LLD, detailed component logic, algorithms, and interfaces. Key deliverables: architecture diagrams, design document specification, DDS, sequence diagrams and data models, architecture decision records, ADRs. Why this phase matters: design decisions are difficult and expensive to reverse. Strong design reduces technical debt and simplifies long-term maintenance. Phase 4. Implementation, development. This phase is the execution of approved designs through code. Development follows defined standards and processes to ensure consistency and quality. Purpose of Phase 4: to build a working system that faithfully implements the design and requirements. Key activities: front-end development, user interfaces and interactions; back-end development, business logic, services, databases, integration with external systems, version control and collaborative development; engineering practices, coding standards and guidelines, code reviews and peer validation; static code analysis, continuous integration, pipelines, feature flags for controlled releases. Why this phase matters: effective implementation ensures maintainability, readability, testability. Poor development practices result in fragile systems that are difficult to scale or debug. Phase 5. Testing, verification and validation. Testing ensures that the system meets both technical correctness and business expectations. Purpose of Phase 5: to identify defects early and confirm that the system behaves as intended under real-world conditions. Types of testing: unit testing, individual components integration testing, interactions between components system testing, complete system behavior performance testing, load, stress, scalability security testing, vulnerabilities and threats user acceptance testing. UAT, business validation verification versus validation verification. Did we build the system correctly? Validation. Did we build the correct system? Why this phase matters: testing reduces production failures, security risks, costly post-release fixes. It protects both users and the organization. Phase 6. Deployment and release. Deployment moves the system from development environments into real-world usage. Purpose of Phase 6: to release software in a controlled, reliable, and reversible manner. Key activities: preparing production environments, ensuring environment parity, executing release strategies, blue-green, canary, phased, defining rollback and recovery procedures, obtaining release approvals, modern practices, continuous deployment, CD, infrastructure as code, DevOps, collaboration between development and operations. Why this phase matters: poor deployment practices can negate months of good engineering by causing outages, data loss, user trust erosion. Phase 7. Operations and maintenance. After release, the system enters its longest and most resource-intensive phase. Purpose of Phase 7: to keep the system stable, secure, and aligned with evolving business needs. Key activities: monitoring and alerting, incident and problem management, root cause analysis, bug fixes and patches, performance tuning, feature enhancements and upgrades, managing technical debt, feedback loop, insights from production usage, feedback into Phase 1, driving new requirements and improvements. This closes the SDLC loop and reinforces its iterative nature. Why this phase matters: most software costs occur after deployment. Effective maintenance ensures long-term value, reliability, and user satisfaction. SDLC models: while the phases of SDLC define what must be done, SDLC models define how and in what order those phases are executed. Different projects face different levels of risk, uncertainty, regulation, and change, so a single execution approach cannot work for all situations. SDLC models provide structured strategies for applying the lifecycle in practice. They determine whether phases run sequentially or iteratively, how feedback is incorporated, how risks are identified and controlled, and how frequently software is delivered. Choosing an appropriate SDLC model is a strategic engineering decision, not a stylistic preference. The wrong model can introduce delays, quality issues, or compliance failures, even if the underlying SDLC phases are well understood. In the following sections, we examine the most commonly used SDLC models, their characteristics, and the contexts in which they are most effective. SDLC models: the SDLC phases remain conceptually the same across projects, but how these phases are executed depends on the SDLC model chosen. An SDLC model defines the order, overlap, iteration, and control mechanisms applied to the lifecycle. There is no universally best model. Experienced engineering teams select or tailor a model based on risk, regulation, system complexity, and requirement stability. 1. Waterfall model: the waterfall model is the most traditional SDLC approach. It follows a linear and sequential flow, where each phase must be completed and signed off before moving to the next. Key characteristics: strict phase boundaries, heavy upfront documentation, minimal change once development begins. When it works best, requirements are fixed and well understood. Regulatory or compliance-driven environments: small to medium-sized systems with low uncertainty limitations, poor adaptability to change, late discovery of issues, high cost of requirement changes. 2. V model: verification and validation model. The V model extends the waterfall approach by explicitly mapping testing activities to each development phase. Key characteristics: strong focus on verification and validation testing planned early in the lifecycle, clear traceability between requirements, design, and tests when it works best, safety critical systems, medical, automotive, aerospace, and defense software systems requiring strict compliance and auditability limitations, rigid structure, limited flexibility for evolving requirements. 3. Agile model: the Agile model is an iterative and incremental approach designed to accommodate changing requirements and fast feedback. Key characteristics: development in short cycles, sprints, continuous stakeholder involvement, frequent delivery of working software when it works best, products with evolving or unclear requirements, startup and product-driven environments, systems requiring rapid market feedback, limitations, requires disciplined teams and strong communication, less suitable for highly regulated environments without adaptation. 4. Spiral model: the spiral model is a risk-driven SDLC model that combines iterative development with systematic risk analysis. Key characteristics: each iteration focuses on identifying and mitigating risks, early prototyping and validation, emphasis on feasibility and technical uncertainty when it works best, large, complex, and high-risk systems, new or unproven technologies, mission-critical applications, limitations management, complexity, higher cost compared to simpler models. 5. Incremental model: the incremental model builds the system in small, functional increments, each adding new capabilities. Key characteristics: partial functionality delivered early, easier testing and debugging, progressive system growth when it works best, systems that can be logically partitioned, projects requiring early value delivery, limitations requires strong upfront architecture, poor design can lead to integration issues. 6. DevOps-oriented SDLC. DevOps is not a traditional SDLC model but a cultural and operational evolution of SDLC. Key characteristics: tight integration between development and operations, continuous integration and continuous deployment, CI/CD, automation across build, test, and release pipelines when it works best, cloud-native and large-scale distributed systems, organizations prioritizing speed, reliability, and resilience, limitations requires significant tooling, cultural change, and maturity. How professionals choose an SDLC model: mature teams do not blindly follow a single model. Instead, they evaluate requirement volatility, system complexity and risk, regulatory constraints, team expertise and organizational maturity. In practice, most organizations adopt hybrid SDLC models, combining elements of Waterfall, Agile, Spiral, and DevOps to suit their specific context. SDLC models are execution strategies, not replacements for SDLC itself. Regardless of the model used, disciplined adherence to SDLC principles is what separates ad hoc development from professional software engineering. The software development lifecycle, SDLC, is not a theoretical concept or a rigid checklist. It is a disciplined engineering framework that governs how software is planned, built, validated, deployed, and evolved. Across its phases, SDLC ensures that decisions are made deliberately, risks are addressed early, and outcomes remain aligned with business and user needs. Equally important are SDLC models, which define how these phases are executed in practice. Whether a team adopts Waterfall for regulatory stability, Agile for adaptability, Spiral for risk-heavy systems, or DevOps-oriented approaches for continuous delivery, the objective remains the same: controlled, predictable, and high-quality software delivery. Mature engineering organizations do not debate SDLC as a concept, they operationalize it. They adapt lifecycle models to context, maintain traceability from requirements to production, and use SDLC as a mechanism for accountability and continuous improvement. Ultimately, the difference between writing software and engineering systems lies in this discipline. SDLC, when applied thoughtfully and professionally, transforms software development from a reactive activity into a reliable, scalable, and sustainable engineering practice.